Our first featured poet is Eris Keon. Eris is an inaugural member of Coug Slam, a collegiate poetry slam team that ranked fourth in the nation last year. Remember 2019? She is ranked number 10 in the 2020 Women of the World Poetry Slam. She is an emerging writers fellow with Writers in the Schools and an in-print C. Glenn Camber Fellow at the University of Houston. Currently, she explores poetry surrounding her experience with academia, abolition, and the Black imagination. Please welcome Eris Keon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your introduction, and thank you all for being here. I'm literally honored to be next to such lovely, amazing writers. So thank you all for having me. The first poem I'm going to do, it's near and dear to my heart because somebody asked me if I could haunt any space, what would it be? And since like I'm in a program that's like almost entirely white, or at least when I wrote the poem, it was like almost entirely white. And so I'm like one of the only Black creative writing students in my like nearly all white institution. So I said I'd haunt the fuck out of academic spaces. I'd smear my blood over wooden bookcases, watch it drip on the covers, cover the names in red, wash these authors out of the canon. I am my own canon, which is to say I am a weapon that houses a magnificent destruction, which is to say I am my own poem. And what is a poem if not the weapon and the gun smoke? If not the trigger and the boom in the twilight after it's long gone? If not a song that clings to your chest at night? If not the words you can't forget? My spirit would belt her own lyrics in the middle of a syllabus, make jazz chords of a lesson plan. I'd like these desks to hum with every argument I started with a white professor on Dickinson or Williams or whoever frost these floors in an ice cold hush when I enter. I am the one you won't forget. I am the one they warned about, statistics. How hard it is to enter a room that never had a door for me. How I shouldn't be here. How, in other worlds, my name is chiseled onto more gravestones than degrees. How Black is both the weapon and the gun smoke. But if I walk through walls that tried to shut me out, then I must be the pettiest ghost. Ride the tails of my petticoat as I cast a lovesick haunting on every ivory tower. Where depression tried to shut me out. Where application fees tried to shut me out. Where the GRE works hard, but my GOD works harder. 21 credits and 2 jobs were nothing but a soul search. I am a poltergeist of high price and mighty persistence. And what is a ghost, if not a holy hope, if not a wish for a finishing, if not a living reminder of what they thought they could kill. And still, everyone asks me or tells me, don't be afraid to take up space. They do not see how much of me already fills the room first. Their idea of me walked in before I did. Said she should be loud. She should carry the conversation for us. Said, Black girls be a token I can cash out, be the Black friend I can reference when she's not around. My anxiety is always on my left. She thinks faster than I speak. My doubt, she's on my right. She'll take a compliment to chew on and spit back up. My morning, afternoon, and midnight depression form a line in front of me. Hold hands like the saddest game of Red Rover anytime someone comes too close. My fear is composed of 3 of me. Me number 1 had to convince me to come up here. Me number 2 had to convince us to write this. Me number 3 told 1 and 2 I'd fail in every line. I see the extrovert who wants to love me, who wants to love everyone when they hop off the stage. I see the introvert who like absolutely wants to just end the Zoom call. I see my ego. It's actually 8 Meg Thee Stallions twerking in the back like, bitch, you the shit. But my self-esteem is Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers, like, but what if you're not? They tell me to take up space. They do not see that I am more than they could ever fathom. And what is God if not 3 of themselves in one? Am I not made in their image? If I learned anything from the Trinity, it's that godliness is having multitudes in oneself, each one capable, each one worthy of praise and lovers of all of us. No one sees how long it took to love all of me, how I fill a room without having to enter, how my name has its own gravitational pull. They tell me, take up space. They do not see that I am a planet, that I contain a universe and all five of me. I am space. You can't take nor have it taken from me. Black girl, be down to earth. Black girl, be gravity. Black girl, don't mind making space for other people. Be lucky I share it with you. I didn't have to do that. Instead of telling me what to take, tell me thank you instead. And this last poem I'm going to read is actually inspired by something that just happened to me recently. It's called A Reply. An email reaches my inbox, and I am once again reminded diversity does not see the person behind the color as long as the color is the subject line. My name underlined along the side of another Black person's face, my words erased from my lips, cut and pasted, handed off since all us Blacks be saying the same things. Like we be the BCC on all you send, the afterthought, the ones who get apologies in private but embarrassed online. I compose a reply. Ask myself if the subject should be honest, should wear my anger in all caps, should capture my sadness at the blatant oversight of this unfortunate mishap, but I decided against it. Once again, forced to second guess a microaggression, forced to question if a Black person makes a scene, but they're never seen in the first place, does it make a difference at all? And this be the conundrum, how Black people must dissect how they respond to how someone responds to them, knowing the responsibility always rests on the ones who don't get the benefit of the doubt, who spend a lifetime getting paid to shout by the very ones who refuse to listen, who knows that regardless of how many poems you write about being overlooked, there will always be folks who tell you to be grateful to be in the room in the first place. And I hate how much I believe them. I'm handed crumbs of attention so others can say they listened without having to hear me. I compose a reply, whispering into a void, knowing that I'll never send it. Since every opportunity relies on my composure, how well I craft this facade of understanding so I'm still invited into rooms that struggle to see the person behind the color. I reply with the only thing I hold closer than anger, hope, praying that someone, anyone, will hear me and see me too. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Bravo. Sometimes I wish we had actual hands clapping, but there is a button for that on Zoom, if nothing else. That was great. Our next poet is Kaya Osborne, aka Calypso. Calypso is a Sacramento-based poet, activist, and actor. They are fat, Black, neurodivergent, queer, and badass. Their work can be found in Calamus Journal, Drunk in a Midnight Choir, Rigorous Journal, What's Good Magazine, and Shade Journal, as well as others. They are a Leo Virgo cusp, and you can find them on Twitter at Calypso the Poet. Please welcome Calypso.
Hello. Coming on the camera real quick to say hello, and then I'm going to read the poems off the phone. So this first poem is called Boy Crazy, as one word, Boy Crazy. I'm 20. Art has returned to my bones, my heart on my sleeve and staining my shadow boxing gloves. The secret to falling in love is you have to give up on it. Like the cheapest styrofoam philosopher's stone, apparently, desire is the qualifier. See, no one told me you'll die before you find the right guy. If you're searching for him in every new cathedral window of eyes, it's no lie. Every blessing and curse comes in disguise. God said so. You just gotta open your eyes. Wait, no. That's not a good place to start. I am 17 years old and my period has stopped. Many griefs have swiped their mercury-dipped talons at my throat, and perhaps my tongue and womb have traded places. I cry to anyone who'll listen, bemoaning a faded priority, snapshots of a hospital bed and my proud blood introducing love's final product. That's not a good place to start. I'm 5 and I have no friends. Something is alive in me. I wish it were a child, but I'm not allowed to want those kinds of things this young. A boy named Angel sits next to me on the bus ride home until I kiss him without asking at a bus stop once. The next day, he sits somewhere else. I like to read books about families and watch TV shows where mommies give birth. Babies are so cute. Daddies are so strong. I want to give something a name that can't walk away. That's not a good place to start. I am 18 and driving an hour and a half for a hookup. No worries on where. That's nobody's business. He smells like relish, tastes like spoiled milk. I tell him I'm down for most things, just no ass stuff. He's got a firm grip and a nice stroke. He seems like he has so many plans for his life. That's not a good place to start. I wasn't on my birth control. That's not a good place to start. He took the condom off without telling me. That's not a good place to start. He held me for a bit while we kissed, and I wondered if he'd ever loved a black girl. He had nice eyes for a white boy. That's not a good place to start. After I was colonized and he laid his flag, I text my best friend and she tells me to go to the police. I don't tell her why I went and she doesn't ask. There's no need. We both know how lonely I've been lately. She and I are not friends anymore, but it's not about that. That's not a good place to start. At the police station, they ask me questions, take my statement, say, we have enough to go get this guy if you want. I ask, how many of these cases do you see a conviction happen though? Their answer would be hopeful if it didn't take 10 seconds between two men to come. They give me a flashing escort to the hospital for the exam, and I wonder if I speed my car into the bobbing purple lights ricocheting off the center divide of the highway, will I float on an ocean of my own shattered intuition? That's not a good place to start. At the hospital, the nurse examiner lady asks me questions in a soft voice. She's white and blonde and beautiful. I want to feel safe talking to her, but the cops are right there, and I feel so much like a Hottentots vivisection. All I can do is ask her how often she has to do this. It takes her too long to say not too often. When it's time to photograph my lacerated country, I ponder the merits of karma and love, wondering if all the lies I told about who has touched me prior earned me this. She gently cracks me open wider, and I flood the trembling sand dunes of my thighs red. She asks if I can get pregnant, hands me a cup before I can reply anyway. I have PCOS. This is the most I've bled down here in months, I joke. Her laugh is so uneasy, like she's never met a stupid, lonely girl before. That's not a good place to start. I am 3, and it is recess at preschool. No one has explained hate to me yet, but I am alone all the time anyway. Nobody calls me their friend anyway. The other kids play house together, draw on the floor their future forebears. They are mommies and daddies and aunties and uncles. Someone just had a new baby and their home is warm and full of laughter when they arrive. The baby is awake, their eyes wide and shining. With nowhere else to go and not knowing any better at all, they have no choice but to love anything that they can see. That's my first one. Thank you for that. And my second one is called Perhaps It Is Time to Admit None of Us Actually Want to Be Children Again. Hearing things wasn't so scary back in the day. Heartbreak could come and go fast as a water balloon popping over our crispy summer toes. The first barbecue, we found out our grandfathers would not make it out of their cigarettes alive. When fights ended in laughter and boastful breath. We're mean now. We've watched someone spill their stuttering lilies into the hungry gutter. We've watched a child empty and swell, empty and swell, empty and swell into the wind's greedy clutches, a scream's foliage blasting its burgundy spores into our mouths. I was in love. There were some deaths. Now I cannot trust the world with my spit, let alone my blood, let alone my flesh, let alone my love. No, I am no longer devastated. I don't ovulate. Everything costs so much nowadays, and I waste enough water as is, crying for free over people that don't know my middle name. I hate, and I've never been so alive. I hate. And the darkest shades of blue spin into terror. I used to have a favorite color, and now I don't waste my time loving anything which can kill me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wow. That was amazing. Thank you. Our next poet is Alexis Mercedes. Alexis is a poet, musician, and visual artist based here in Houston. Their poetry reviews and interviews have been published in the Bayou Review, Wineskin, Defunct Magazine, The Barker's Voice, Texas Best Emerging Poets, and Brazos Bookstore. They've twice been a featured reader for Houston's Gentle Hour reading series. Alexis currently works as a barista and a freelance artist. Please welcome Alexis Mercedes.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate being here with you all. I have a few poems to read. First about mothers. So let me start with those. Okay, so my first one is Summer at My House. My mom is standing with her blueberry jam jars that sit along the counter row by row. Her blue eyes and small smile remain down as she scrubs her fingers on the red and white checks of her apron. They will expire one day, but now they are fresh and sweet. Blueberry sugar rounds my stomach like hers. I shiver in wet sun straps when the breeze floats in the screen door after a sweaty day. In this moment, I am aware, resting my head on the cool glass table with dirt in my fingernails and tired feet, that she will leave the earth soon. A catch in my breath when she lights through the doorway, the scent of gardenia drifting away. Next, I have Portrait of My Mother. It's a sestina I wrote a little while ago that I just really enjoyed. Portrait of My Mother. My family tends to scatter. We were taught by my mother, and that time we went to Santa Monica Pier, I was young, but I knew that when mom wants to be alone, she screams at us and into the great big. We all disappeared for hours. When I walked away with my sister, I spent the next few hours kneeling in the sand, where the pebbles scatter into blues, reddish golds, marbled greens, with my big Ziploc baggie. I thought about my mother who wanted to be alone while all that time passed, and I was so young. I watched her from a distance, her thin, young legs reflecting in the water as she dreamed about the hours she could have taken for herself had she been alone, without that first baby at 18. She may have scattered amongst the pencil skirts in her dream job had she not been a mother, her belly so round and so big. In her belly, my long legs bulged big and pushed against her skin. My young soft mouth pursed in a pensive frown. My mother sang to me after I was born for hours. Her voice filled my ears and scattered through my brain, sounding again and again in my head when I was alone. It was that song, Jesus, 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 I sang alone. But in the kitchen, her yells reverberated through such a big, raw throat, angry about anything, and the glass shards would scatter across the floor. I heard them, my ears were still young, so I held my body close in the long hours and sang to myself like a mother. Years later, I am out of the house. Here sits my mother. I watch her in the white rocking recliner alone, swaying softly and watching TV for hours. My tears are wet and big, and I don't think that she has loved me since I was very, very young. I will not scream, but I do scatter. She's my mother. Alone in my mind, the memories scatter into small years, into hours, when I was still young, and her love was so full, so big. And I have one more one more poem for this section. It's called My Mother, All Mothers. The clean white cigarette crackles red in the air when my mother lights its end. Yellow meets red meets black while I think about baby blue. My mother could have been Clementine without the fire, the blows to body and spirit, lying on the ground next to the red-hot heater, crowded between shoulders of bony brothers, shivering sisters, skins curled taut and creeping, cuddled with ashtrays. The burning in the lungs and on their lips, in their fingertips. My mother, all mothers. If abuse cycles down, what mother and lover will I be? When my grandmother hits, my mother hits, and I hit too, hard and full and everywhere at once. We children have been flayed while living, and yes, it's true, we are burning too from the same cigarettes my mother's mother lit 50 years ago in the den of an Oklahoma field house, the rug fringed with red and purple threads, stained in consequence and plunged with Lysol after the brawls, eyes dried up and embedded in sticky cheeks. She is burning. We are burning. The encompassing flame. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Our next poet is January Gill O'Neill. She is an associate professor at Salem State University. She is also the author of Rewilding, Misery Islands, and Underlife, all of which were published by Cavancari Press. From 2012 through 2018, she served as the executive director of the Massachusetts Poetry Festival and currently serves on the boards of AWP, Mass Poetry, and Montserrat College of Art. She has received fellowships from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, Cavacanum, and the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund. O'Neill was the 2019-2020 John and Renee Grisham Writer-in-Residence at the University of Mississippi, Oxford. Please welcome January Gill O'Neill.
Okay, thanks everyone. Hi, I'm here in Massachusetts and you all are far away. So it's good that we can do this and be a little closer. So I'm gonna read 3 poems. Because of COVID and the pandemic, we haven't been going out like we used to. About 2 years ago, one of our beloved landmarks closed. It was a roller rink. And being a single mom of 2 kids, I don't get out to dance much, but I always love going roller skating because for a few minutes, I got to be, you know, just sort of, well, I got to be a woman versus a mother. So this is my love song to that place. Night at the Roller Palace. After the birthday crowds thin out, after the hokey pokey and chicken dance, after the parents have towed their shaky kids like cabooses ready to decouple, and the pint-sized skaters have circled the rink like a gang of meerkats spun into a 10-car pileup, you turn sideways and angle by as another one bites the dust, thumps overhead. You give a finger point to the DJ stand because in your mind, we are all soldiers in the march against time, grooving to the retro beat, while the disco ball shines overhead, cut crystal against rainbow walls. You glide like Mercury or Apollo Ono without wings or skin suit in lowrider jeans that hug your body like you hug corners, past them all on the smoothed out parquet floor, worn down by rhythm and time. The trick is to make it look effortless. Remind them that your quickness is a kind of love. You are the spark between wood and wheel. And when your cranky kids hang out by the wall, ready to go, holding those 8 wheels by their brown leather tongues, you give them a wave and keep circling. Just one more song, you say. This is your me time. It's all skate. You've got your whole self in. That's what it's all about. And so the next poem is for my son, who is now 16 and about to go off to his first job. hoodie. A gray hoodie will not protect my son from rain, from the New England cold. I see the partial eclipse of his face as his head sinks into the half dark and shades his eyes. Even in our quiet suburb with its unlocked doors, I fear for his safety, the darkest child on our street in the empire of blocks. Sometimes I do not know who he is anymore, traveling the back roads between boy and man. He strides a deep stride, pounds a basketball into wet pavement. Will he take his shot, or is he waiting for the open mouth orange rim to take a chance on him? I sing his name to the night, ask for safe passage from this borrowed body into the next, and wonder who could mistake him for anything but good. And I'll read one more. On occasion, I have been told that I look like our former First Lady, not the current. On being told I look like FLOTUS, New Year's Eve party 2014. Deep in my biceps, I know it's a compliment, just as I know this is an all Black people look-alike moment. So I use the minimal amount of muscles to crack a smile. All night he catches sight of me, or someone like me, standing next to the deconstructed cannoli and empty bottles of Prosecco. And in that moment, I understand how little right any of us have to be whomever we are, the constant tension of making our way in this world on hope and change. You're working your muscles to the point of failure, Michelle Obama once said about her workout regimens. But she knows we wear our history in our darkness, in our patience. A compliment is a compliment, this I know, just as the clock will always strike midnight and history repeats. This is how I can wake up the next morning and love the world again. Thank you.
I would like to welcome back our 4 featured poets, starting with Eris Kian.
Hi, y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. Sorry. Okay. Thanks for having me again. Lovely poems in the open mic. I really enjoyed them. The poem I want to do, it's a very exciting poem for me because for me, I think of poetry as like a very interactive experience. So this one, if y'all have use of your chat function, I would like for y'all to participate in this poem with me. It's a choose your kind of own adventure poem. So I'll give you 2 options, A or B. And if y'all are willing to participate, you just type A or B in the chat, and that'll take me along the journey of the poem. So the first one that I see, or the one that I see the most of, is the route that I'll go. I do this particularly because this topic is extremely hard for me. So giving people agency over it in a way that allows me to navigate it in a way that feels comfortable for the audience gives me a little bit more relief, if that makes sense. So I'm going to begin with step 1, and then I'll give you A or B. In all honesty, it is expensive being full. I tell no one, but everyone knows how desire has made a liar of me, saying no to my needs as my body shudders otherwise. When the storm brews in my belly, I swallow every bolt. I am not proud of how the lightning striking inside of me is more a comfort than a craving, how it is cost efficient. I learned that worldwide, lightning flashes 40 times per second, and worldwide, every 5 seconds, 1 child dies from hunger. If 200 strikes are never likely to touch the ground, then they must rumble between A, a cumulonimbus cloud, or B, a forest of wood standing upright in the wrong spot. B, A forest avoid standing upright in the wrong spot. I walk upright with the audacity to be alive. I use the change in my pocket to plug the hole in my chest, storing the beating heart, flowering out of me, mass mattering in more space than I can stretch my limbs. I don't own this land, and those who do can monopolize my body, clear the space and level the ground I walk on with the flash of a dollar sign. Had I known that simply being would be expensed by the square foot, would I have planted myself here? When a tree falls, it A, is muffled by the green wrapped around the root, or B, sputters a soft sound. A, is muffled by the green growing wrapped around the root. Silence has become its own currency. Say nothing of the falling all around you and you will earn your keep. This system is rooted in the side glance to the suffering, grown as swiftly as it's watered. The downfall pours from high places, their horses wading through the floods while we wait for a handout. We are told if we can stretch out our limbs, we must be able to swim. We make life vests from the branches, but it grows around our necks. The water rises, ringing in our ears like A national anthem, or B, a lullaby of lightning. E, a lullaby of lightning. Sometimes I feel guilty for having an eating disorder. Other times I remember how easy it is to overlook my hunger, side glanced and sweat beneath the flashes, striking in the middle of me hidden behind a healthy smile, choosing a textbook over my next meal. My body sings a solid argument. It ends up sounding like a lullaby. Suffering has made its way into my morning routine. First essay, then breakfast. This is self-care. This crashing in my stomach sounds like A, a protest, or B, an orchestra. A protest. When hunger strikes, instead of boarding the windows, I stand outside, upright, arms outstretched, making forests of every finger waiting for the crash. I think I'm trying to invite a violence I can actually see coming in the gray scale of an unforgiving cloud, in no one's hands but my own, a weapon of destruction I can look in the eye without wavering. But each strike is a manifestation of my body's fight for its own survival, saying, didn't I say to stay alive the first time? I've decided not to starve myself today. Which is to say, I have decided my body is worth listening to. Thank you. Thank y'all so much for participating in this poem. And I appreciate y'all for listening to me. Y'all chose a really good ending. So that is it. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bravo. I love that on so many levels. Next up, I'd like to welcome back featured poet Kaya Osborne, AKA Calypso.
Hi. Let me open up my document. Okay, so this poem is called Leo Season. I am a Leo, so it only felt right. Pageantry is an heirloom. By the time I got it, the clasp was broken. Magnets missing and gaps in its teeth. I'm a wild, burnt brown sugar girl. Once upon a time, I was born, then I was motherless. The performance of loving me has plagued every conscience in sour, golden leisures. The fake tooth that rots the root, the slimy crevice of an apple's wormhole. I'm a terrible surprise. Boisterous and nutrient stealing, I'm an orchestra of glittering bad decisions. My mother loved me first, and I ate her away one ungrateful glower at a time. My smiles have never reached the sun. I hate competition. My toxic trait is bowing before any captive audience if the applause is warm when I finish. Speaking of being a Leo, you should follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is in the Zoom. My Twitter is in the Zoom name. That I have. It's Calypso the Poet, KHALYPSO THEPOET. I am also a tarot reader on top of being a poet, so I offer readings and stuff like that. And I also just in general say very smart, intelligent things on the internet, where all smart and very intelligent things live. And this next poem is another one of my poems of the same name. It's a suite Perhaps it is time to admit none of us actually want to be children again. We all remember head, shoulders, knees, and toes, the first parade of self-exploration as defined by decency. I touched my own butt once, giggling like a criminal, and a teacher swatted my hands. The old heads envied my skin and youthful bounce. I always coveted their right to observe with their tongues out, bankrupt in apologies and still served. Laughing feels like currency now, and I'm rich. No one calls me cute unless I wear a special bra. Our bodies never stop being a controversy, and begging to color the air with our joy is still entitlement. Truly, what has even changed? There was that one summer none of us realized the Proud Family was canceled. And oh, my niggas, by the time we had the world lost its luster. You see, either our fathers had never come back with the bread, or they came home with extra dirt on their shoes, and our poor mothers either only had one good nerve left or two new babies to add to her brood of soft prayers that a familiar pair of cratered, woolly thighs would soothe her babbling worries. And isn't it enough to know only that much? Do I really have to tell you what was playing the night almost all of us watched our fathers disappear into a bottle or a second job or the next family or the dirt? In the dry valley heat of our relentless youths, we all saw the last radiant beam of light strike our porches and wake the blue jays in triumph before ever knowing what a last chance was. And some of us, only some of us, had the good sense to call out to the warmth and beg it to return to us in our sleep when it was ready to sing the joy back into our bones, humming the rhythms of our grandmother's deepest laughs. All right, I got one more poem, and then that will be all. If I can find it. I lost it. Oh, did I lose it? Did I lose it? Not the poem. Oh, yes, here we go. Found it. Sorry. So this poem starts off with an epigraph by Boris Gardiner. Every nigger is a star, black and shining and tired. I fear water the same way I imagine my ancestors did, tongue-tied and hope-filled that the miserly depth holds life where the distance between freedom and here fails. They said, get out and vote, like men didn't stand in line at the ready, only to disappear into the nation's bloody foliage. They said, freedom of speech, like we haven't held the cauterized tongues of slaves who learned how to read while they split the night sky with their trembling screams. Truth is, the law has swallowed droves of my niggas into its boundless belly, and it's still hungry. My people ran to rivers, fed the current their bones and their names. Their faces were never loved again. I say the lost names nestled beside the morning sun, and a sky shatters, blood running rampant down its thighs like a beckon for birth or a reckoning for a redneck, a bullet, a cardinal, a slice of sweet meat. I've learned to catch what taunts the hate in my mouth and crush it like the stained rapture of a blackberry's popping. I have learned to write because that is the only gift you can give the dead. I chart the memories of forgotten generations, say all the stories they had no time to birth between the tobacco fields and the cotton gin. I give them the only freedom they ever begged for, to be heard, and yet there is absence everywhere, even between the tongue and teeth. When I say I cannot love, I mean I do not know my family's history. How one hand guided the next to its metal. How a body fell into its terror and bloomed a protest. On the night a father evacuated his veins in my city, my trembling fingers stood still. The air staled and tangled into carcinogen. There was nowhere to look but up. Thank you so much for hearing that. I just wanted to say on my last poem That poem's called Black and Shining and Tired, and it was originally written for Stephon Clark. But I just wanted to take a second to like, and this is a very controversial stance, but just to say that like, I am no longer taking the time and space to advocate for Black men who are killed by police, who in their living time mistreat, abuse, and shit on Black women. After all the public support that I gave to Stephon Clark, I want to openly now say, fuck Stephon Clark. And fuck anyone who will shit on Black women, Black non-binary people, Black trans people, regardless.
Thank you. Thank you. So our next reader is Alexis Mercedes. Lex.
Okay, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing everybody else so far. Thank you so much, Eris and Calypso and Ms. O'Neill. Right now I'm going to be reading a few poems that are a little more personal in, well, they're all pretty much personal, but in tone, more about the self. Okay, this is In the Beginning Was a Body. My body is a room, and I am filling it with anything but dust. Can I grow old with myself? I want the world to be filled with a glorious cacophony, like the world I live inside my head, the really real. It's what madness feels like when I repeat the groaning of the centuries. Job said he was mere dust. Paul said the earth was groaning. God said, let there be me, and in the beginning, me was beautiful to a small being like I. O small troglodyte. O small wanderer, I was so worthy of your adoration. I'm told that I was a kaleidoscope of disaster in your green, abundant garden of no more. In truth, my body is tired of making room for lovers who don't love me like the myths said they would. Tired of men who feast on skin and thieve kisses like they are Miranda rights, not the soft, heady flowers they are in the dark on the windowsill. I'm fired up until I am one big candle dripping onto one long page of rights I read myself. You have the right to remain your own for as long as you're able. And I am repeating all other women like me who suffer from so much wax and so much little space. And next is self-mutilation. The strange curdle of an elephant's howl. Did you know they bang their heads against the wall when they have lost their families? Their brains teem like flies on a carcass. What ghosts cloud the grieving insides of their skin? They are so reverently large, filled to near splitting with a grotesque of loves, composed of memory. I wield two fists like horns against myself as though pain departs with blunt force trauma. Here I am, making blue. My memories are enemies, throat raw with a voice I picked up long ago saying, I never forget a face. Next is one a little bit more about religion and the self. This is Honeysuckle and Samson. I was strong once. Promised to God, killed a lion with my own hands. I sneered at those sick Judases kissing Jesus, unrepentant, the ones who turn away, who fall sweetly into the snare. Now I too have suckled honey from a carcass, sighed into the soft skin of a lover, and drank wine, the kind that makes you want to forget. I am my own Delilah. I cut my own hair. When it is my time to go, I will bring down the pillars of my enemies for the last time. God is not a myth. He will not be mocked, and so I will fall too, bound, locks of hair beneath my feet. And last I have for you a poem called Spores, Extant, that was inspired by the many tea cups that I usually have on my bedside table. Okay. Ceramic pink flowers and lavender and petals, sometimes chamomile, dandelion yellow. They used to drink me up, gray and fawning over my tea leaf tethers, divination, my fortune and the future, all of me in one clinking cup. I wish I could be so easy, so full again. I used to be ritualized, nighttime, loyal. Now many teacups clink together. Now many of my vessels are stacked on the nightstand. I am an amalgam of spores. I know I've been left behind. When I am finally poured out, my soul billows like a sheet in the water, some hyperactive object, some malleable ether. I've lived many lives, but you pour me out of my vessel and make me watch. You will remember me a while, but then you will forget. But I am spores. I can lie dormant for years. Watch me take over more and more of the branches. Watch me multiply, transform, flex. Watch me ball my way into existence over and over again. Your tongue will grow thick with my green, gray, bitter fuzz. I am spit out. I trickle into the drain, the holes of no return. No take me backsies, but also no forgetting. Not really ever. They do pour me out, place my vessel in the wash. I am spinning in and out of existence. As long as you need me, I'm here. And I make the world go round. I lived once, and now I am gone, and I make the world go round. Thank you.
Thank you. Bravo. Our final featured poet for this afternoon is January Gill O'Neill. Please welcome her back.
Thank you. And thank you for this afternoon. What a lovely way to spend a Saturday. I got to hear some amazing readers, not only the features, but the open mic folks. So thank you. This has been great. So I'm just going to close with two poems. Here in Massachusetts, specifically in Boston, it's steeped in revolutionary history. So I wrote a poem about Old South Meeting House, which is one of the oldest structures in Boston. And it's also the site that the Revolutionary War was planned, the Boston Tea Party was planned. So feels like a time of revolution anyway. So Old South Meeting House. We draw breath from brick, step on stones, weather worn, cobbled and carved with the story of this church, this meeting house, where Ben Franklin was baptized and Phyllis Wheatley prayed, a mouth house where colonists gathered to plot against the crown. This structure, with elegant curves and round-topped windows, was the heart of Boston, the body of the people, survived occupation for preservation, foregoing decoration for conversation. Let us gather in the box pews, once numbered and rented by generations of families held together like ribs in the body politic. Let us gaze upon the upper galleries to the free seats, where the poor and town slaves listened and waited and prayed and pondered for revolution. Let us testify to the plight of the well-meaning at the pulpit, with its sounding board high above, congregations raising heads and hands to the sky. We, the people, the tourists and the townies, one nation under this vaulted roof, exalted voices speaking poetry out loud in praise and dissent. Yes, we draw breath from brick, ignite the fire in us, speak to us. The language is hope. So that poem and the ones I read before were from my book, Rewilding. And this last one is a new one for me. There was an anthology that just came out called Together Alone. I don't know if you can see that, but that is poems for this COVID time that we're in. So I had a poem in there. So this poem is called Glitter Road. And I wrote it when I was in Mississippi. It was the last poem I wrote in Mississippi. I was there for 9 months on fellowship. And in the middle of the street, there was a huge purple ink blot. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was really beautiful. It was, almost like the purple in this painting. I found out later, that's what the water department uses to test it's a dye for the to just sort of test the flow of water, but it was just random and odd. And somehow I got a poem out of that. Glitter Road. I'll take my miracles however they appear these days. A salamander poking its head above the bricks, the shocking blue overcoat of the season's first bluebird, a spider web unbroken. On the corner of Molly Ball and McElroy, I saw a thick trail of glitter in the curve of the right turn lane. Fuchsia, heavy shimmer refracting the noonday sun as if laying flat a rainbow's extracted hue. Not paint or blood or parade shedding its cheer. It's the faded streak of eyeshadow as it trails into flecks, then disappears. I think of cars passing through this moment, their undercarriages aglow with possibility. Hard not to feel good, riding a glistening wave, my tires now bespeckled with a purple sheen that's tough to rid or wash away. The road ahead made beautiful by this temporary shine. Thank you.